The story is not going to be, oh my God, the best story ever, but you're going to laugh your ass off so hard that you will have less because you laughed all of it off. What's really good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Today, I wanted to talk about the best books that I've read this year. Strike that. Strike that. Pencil. Use whiteout. Move that. I wanted to talk about my favorite books of 2024. These may not have been the best books themselves, objectively, but I loved them. They were my favorite of 2024. I only make that distinction because I don't want anybody to be like, that book wasn't that good. I'm gonna be like, that's fine for you, but for me, it was my favorite, okay? But before we start, I just wanted to ask you, what have you read this year and or what is your favorite book of 2024? Leave it in the comments below. We can have a discourse. I would love to know what you guys are reading. Now, let's get into the first one. So the first one I wanted to talk about is Titanica, okay? This is book 3 of Alex Robbins' Ruined Gods trilogy, an ancient Greek mythology-inspired series. So, without going into too many spoilers, Titanica and the 3 books themselves is just Greek mythology in a raw, ruthless form. 100%. There are battles, there are war, there is gore, there is blood. It's not necessarily grim dark, but it is a very just raw action and plot heavy fantasy. Very limited on like the romance side, very limited on like a lot of the soft attributes of fantasy. It's much more heavier on the battles, the myths, the gore, the graphic scenes, etc., which for me was a little bit of a surprise, but it was super enjoyable. You might be thinking that, Arish, why is the 3rd book in a trilogy your favorite one, and why are you talking about the 3rd one? Aren't you afraid of spoiling your people? I'm like, yes, I am afraid of spoiling my people, and you probably weren't thinking that until I told you to think that, so now that's in your head. The way the Ruined Gods trilogy worked and the way it progressed, book 1 was like, cool, it was average, it kind of got me, etc. Book 2, better than book 1, 4-star read. Really enjoyed it. It really like ramped up the plot in a really good way, the way book 1 set it up to, and it wasn't like bullshit. So then from book 2 to book 3, it was another massive plot leap, massive like story leap, and the way all the characters progress, the way they evolve, the way they come together, all of that stuff really tied Titanica to be the best of the 3 and one of my favorite things to read this year. Because as I was reading it, I was like, there's no way Alex Robbins is doing this to me right now. No way the characters are making these decisions, but they are. And the way he ended it, it's interesting because it's not a redemption story in the way you would expect it. It is not a hero story in the way you would expect it, right? It is very much like twists and turns in on itself. And I enjoyed every single minute of it. Here's the thing, right? I don't cry. I don't like crying. I don't like tears falling down my face. I think I just don't like, I don't like the way my face looks when it's getting toward crying. Yeah, like that. I didn't cry at the end of the book, but the events that were happening were borderline getting my eyes welled up. I was welling up, about to cry at the end of this book. The fact that a book can take me to that emotional extent to where I want to cry is in and of itself amazing. Like, hats off to you, Alex Robbins. Titanica, intro certified banger. And you'll notice that a lot of the books that I'm going to talk about are the ones you've probably never heard of, and they're also by indie authors. And I think this year has been an amazing year for indie authors. I've enjoyed a lot more indie author books this year than I have just regular popular mainstream like author books. So have you ever thought about, like, okay, you see Yu-Gi-Oh, you see Pokemon, you see Magic the Gathering, you see Elestrals, you see Digimon, you see all these card games, and have you ever wanted to like read them fully text-based? Have you ever wondered, what is it like reading a card battle story without the pictures, without the like little attack and defense numbers, without the like explanations on the card that show you, that it maybe shows you in the manga panel, things like that? Have you ever wondered, how is it to read one of those? Is it even good? How can you actually do that well? Yeah, Benedict Patrick did that really well. In my head, I was thinking Benedict Cumberbatch, my bad, bro. This is bar none the most underrated book that I have read this year, okay? It is Card Mage Slumdog Duck Builder by Benedict Patrick, okay? Look at this. I'll put the actual colored cover art on the screen for you as well. Card Mage brings a really fresh approach to this genre, And I will say a couple of things, right? It is a little bit of a chosen one trope, but we don't really get to see how that pans out in book one, which I think is cool, not expecting that, oh my God, this main character is the guy and he's never gonna lose. Because that's a very common thing in a lot of like, targeted towards kids card game stories of like, here's your main character, he never loses, as he has the heart of the cards, he has the final draw, he's gonna pull out, okay? I meant he's going to pull out a win. We're going to move on from that. Another one. This is not an orphan trope. Thank God it's not a chosen one plus orphan trope. Thank you, Benedict Patrick, for not doing that. That was a great choice because if I had to read another orphan trope story, I would have shot myself in Minecraft. So this story has a very interesting premise where the main character has the ability to create new cards based on the one that he has, the one that he acquires by falling down into a swamp and meeting some random character who God knows who. It's like it's not like the Karibo for Yugi or like those kind of things, but it's like he meets a fated creature who ends up giving him a card based on a newly undiscovered archetype. That's essentially what happens. But then what's even more interesting is that you see, oh wait, is generating new cards his only ability or is there something else? Because, and I'll draw this comparison, in Card Fight Vanguard, the anime, and I have the cards for it too. I think in like season 4, well, I think in all the seasons actually, you notice that like the main character has a specific card, and sometimes when he like strengthens his bond with that card, and there's this like alternate universe where the cards are actually existing creatures, and so they have a bond, and when they strengthen that bond, sometimes a new card forms in his hand, or sometimes a new card slides its like generates in his deck that's just the card he needs to win. This isn't like that, but the principle is the same, where it's like when he wins, sometimes like he'll get a new card from that archetype appearing with him. So now then he has 2 cards of the archetype. Oh shit. What do you do with that? Very, very interesting, very, very cool premise. Another thing, I think this is the coolest part though too. It's not a one-on-one battle. It can be, but it's not a one-on-one battle. The way he starts it off is because they're in the slums. They are card fighting in the slums. And so the way the slums work is you have gang card battles where it's a 30 card on 30 card battle. You have to have 30 cards to play. And everybody in the slums, if you have a card, at least has 1 card, right? So the way it works is you get 30 people together. Everybody pitches in their card. You have to try and figure out which cards synergize the best and stuff and all that. And you get a 30 card deck, and then they choose 3 people to have a 3-on-3 battle against their opponents, who are also a card gang, also like a 3-person battling team. So that part is also very interesting, where it's not like, it's only on you. You have to kind of team up, do a little bit of strategy, and like on the like real time adjustments to whatever your teammates are playing. Or if you're like, hey, I got this card, let me use the mana for this round, you hold on to yours, or you pass, let me use the mana for that kind of thing, right? So it's very interesting in that way. And the last thing I'll leave you with is I think that this story in the next book is going into a card battle academy story arc. Like from the way that this was setting it up, I'm really hoping it's heading there, and I'm excited. I love a good university battle arc where they're like going to the university training. You have like the lore drops and all that stuff. I love all that. So I'm super pumped. But that was Card Mage, Slumdog Deck Builder. I really think you should check it out if you're into card battles. I think Benedict Patrick did a really good job of not over-explaining the cards, describing the creatures without making it seem like, oh, he's really trying to make you imagine it. No, he's like, here's how it is, here's how it looks, here's how it acts. You imagine it for yourself, and then you can really imagine the cards battling as you're reading. We all like funny things, right? Comedy is a lost art these days, in my opinion, and especially in the written form. A lot of people aren't writing very good, like just comedy-centered books. It's a lot about, like, comedy is a subgenre or just a sub-attribute. It's not really the main thing. It's not trying to be funny, but it is just like, you have a lot of quips and you have a lot of banter and stuff. So this next thing I'm about to show you is the funniest thing I've read the entire year, January 1st to December 31st. I'm not even recording this on December 31st, and I'm telling you it's the funniest thing that I'm going to read this year, and the funniest thing that I have read in the last half decade. It will be one of the funniest things you have read in the last decade or half decade, and that is The Greatest Real Estate Developer, which is not a book, it is a manhwa. So I had to add this because this is one of my favorite things to read this entire year, and the just the sheer amount of laughter that I generated reading this book that I had to also suppress because I was reading it at my in-laws' house. I was reading it in front of my wife. I was reading it in public. So I had to suppress a lot of my just raucous, loud laughter. And I had to suppress a lot of my giggling and just snickering and chuckling and all the sounds you make when you're trying to laugh and or not laugh. It was so good. Now, the thing with me is I love any sort of comedy. If your book has any sort of well done comedy, whether it's just character by character banter, if it's like fully comedic scenes, if it's like whatever it is, your book is already like a 3-star. It's already good for me. Okay, it's already good because you did that part well. And so many books don't do it well that you did it well. And that is commendable. Now, for the fear of messing up names and giving too much away, I'm just going to read what the synopsis, summary, teaser blurb is from Webtoon for this series. When civil engineering student Suho Kim falls asleep reading a fantasy novel, he wakes up as a character in the book. Suho is now in the body of Lloyd Frontera, a lazy noble who loves to drink and whose family is in a mountain of debt. Using his engineering knowledge, Suho designs inventions to avert the terrible future that lies in wait for him. With the help of a giant hamster, a knight, and the world's magic, can Suho dig his family out of debt and build a better future? Now, that sounds really cheesy and really fucking corny, so I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to stop you from thinking that because you're going to want to think the next thing that I'm telling you. I'm telling you this is the greatest comedy manhwa of its time. The panels, like the facial expressions that they use, the tropes that they use, the comedic timing, because you might think like, oh, what, like how do you achieve comedic timing when you're reading something? Because it's based on how fast you're reading it, when you're reading the comedy lines and stuff like that. But no, the way he sets up the panels to have like, it's like, you know, if you were there live, this panel would be like a 3-second pause and then this would happen. And just the way the lines are set up, the way the tropes are set up, it's so like you're there along for the ride for the story. The story is nice. The story is decent. It's a story. It's not bad. It's just the way that the author, BK Moon, really just above all else, he just wants to make you laugh. That's really the crux of it. This story does not take itself seriously. The author does not take this story like seriously, which is so refreshing because there's so many parts where it's like, this could be serious, but it's not. Nothing's serious. Nothing at all is serious. It's so funny. And but I want to say one thing for it, which annoys me about all of the tropes of this type of story, where the main character dies and wakes up in a new world. Oh, they wake up in the novel they were reading, right? Omniscient Reader is one of those as well. Like Omniscient Reader, the way they said it was the main character read this book and he was the only person reading it right up until the last chapter, and he read it like I think maybe multiple times throughout his like life while it was still coming out, something like that. It's like he really read it a lot. If I'm not mistaken, Suho just read this story once. He was just reading it on like an afternoon or something like that, or like reading it at night or whatever. And then he like wakes up in it, but then he perfectly remembers everything that happens in the plot from chapter 1 all the way to like how much ever he read. Like, how does that like you're telling me all these main characters have perfect recall? Because that's not a thing. That's my only gripe with these kind of stories. But regardless, The Greatest Real Estate Developer needs to be on. If you're a reader of manhwa and manga, you need to read this story. The story is not going to be, oh my god, the best story ever, but you're going to laugh your ass off so hard that you will have less ass because you laughed all of it off. And that's Ensho certified. It's really hard for me to talk about this next one. The next book is not a book. It is a series, but it is the bar none best thing that I have read this year. I reread Solo Leveling this year. It's one of my favorite manhwa of all time. This series is better than Solo Leveling. You can't really compare the two, but in terms of what I read this year, this series just knocks everything else out of the park. I stopped everything when I started this series. The Echo Saga by PC Quaintrell is a 3-phase, 9-book series. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 is what I like to call it. Every 3 books is a new phase because every 3 books is a new set of characters, conflict, etc. Originally, I started this series because I was looking for more series involving Rangers because I was having a Ranger's Apprentice itch, but I didn't want to read Ranger's Apprentice. I picked up this series on accident because I'm stupid. 2 years ago, in 2022, I had read a sample of Pedro Irvy's Ranger book 1. I forget the name of it, but I'll put it on the screen right now. I read a sample of that book. So when I was itching for another Ranger book, I went to go find that book, but I forgot that the sample that I had read was Pedro Irvy. So instead, I picked up Rise of the Ranger, book 1 by P.C. Quaintrell, thinking that was the book that I read. And I started it and I was like, this is not the book that I read. But this is probably the happiest accident of reading that I've ever had in my life, because I think this series is one of the top 10 series that I've ever read in my life. So let's talk about it. Without going into spoilers, this is not a book review of the book. This is me simply telling you what all I liked about the book. I'm just gonna list off to you what I said, what I wrote down, okay? Echo Saga has quite literally everything you want in a fantasy novel / series. Dragons, elves, dwarfs, orcs, mages, warriors, rogues, multiple continents, memorable names and locations, mer people, sea monsters, dragon riders. I'm still going, by the way. Hyperbolic time chamber, Batman, action, romance, comedy, banter, memorable dialogue, and such lovable, fucking amazingly lovable characters. I cannot stop talking about this book, this series, because it is just like over 9 books. There is just so much that P.C. Quaintrell put in this series. And there are time skips, right? So it's not like everything is in chronological order in terms of like the first 3 books is whatever year and the next 3 books is immediately following the actions of the first 3. No, there's time skips. There's like there's a change in like generations and things like that. You go from generation 1 to generation 2 and book from phase 1 to phase 2, and from phase 2 to phase 3 you go into like generation 2 conflict. It is such a beautifully crafted series, a beautifully crafted built world, a beautifully constructed plot that when I start reading, I don't put it down. So I have to pick when I want to start reading the book, because I know as soon as I start it, I'm not stopping until I finish it. So this story to me is on par with Cinda Williams' Chima stories that I love so much. The Air Chronicles, the Seven Realms series. It's better than the Shadowed Realms series, in my opinion. Like, I don't want to say too many things for you. Like, when you think of an epic, when you think of like a large adventure, when you think of the phrase like you're really like living with these characters, that's what this is. In 9 books, P.C. Quaintrell is really making you live with these characters. It is amazing. He makes so many good choices, so many choices that I do not agree with. Like, I can't finish a book and not just like sit there and think, wow, this was amazing. I need you to read this book. Just read the first one. Just read Rise of the Ranger. You don't have to commit yourself to online books. I would never tell you to do that. But I really want to force this book down your fucking eye holes because it is so good. It's so awesome. Like, what the fuck, P.C. Quaintrell? How did you make this? How did you make this? Like, just okay. So by the way, I haven't even finished the series yet. Okay, I still have book 9 left. Okay, I'm 8 books in. The end of book 8, the way I need somebody else to finish this series so I can just talk to them about it, I need that to be one of you, please. Like, I don't know what else to say here, right? I don't know what else to do besides yell at you to read this series, and that's why I'm yelling at you that the Echoes Saga by P.C. Quaintrell is the best book / series of books that I have read in 2024. All 9 books are better than everything else that I told you about today. The comedy is not the same as Greatest Realistic Developer. The Greatest Realistic Developer is simply just comedy, but this one has such good banter. So Ranger's Apprentice has Will Treaty and Halt, whatever the fuck his last name is, I can never remember it. Entro fucking certified Asher and Doran Heavy Belly of the Heavy Belly Dwarven clan is on par, or they are on par with Halt and Will. How the fuck is this 34 minutes? God damn, there's only 4 books that I was talking about. I'm going to leave you with these books. I'm going to leave you with these thoughts. And I will be back next time to tell you about what I'm reading in 2025, what books I'm looking forward to reading in 2025. So until then, you guys take care. You guys have a good time. continue reading, gift somebody a book this upcoming winter season, this upcoming Christmas season, gift somebody a good, well-constructed story, The Echo Saga, gift somebody laughter, Greatest Real Estate Developer, gift somebody the magic of card battling, Card Mage, gift somebody some gory, crying or emotionally taxing Greek mythological inspired story, Titanica, the Ruined Gods series, and gift them this video. I will catch you guys later. Have a good day.